But how did they break through the outer sentry posts on the mountain? When we fled back up the mountain, I clearly ordered the sentries along the way to strengthen their vigilance. Li Feiyu muttered to himself in confusion. There's nothing strange about that. The Wild Wolf gang must have been plotting this large-scale assault for a long time. Planting a few outer spies would have been an easy task, with those internal traitors guiding them. It's only natural that those sentry posts were taken down silently, Han Li said indifferently. However, it's impossible for the Wild Wolf gang to easily take all the branch halls. I suspect they intend to surround the peaks where each hall is located without attacking them directly, while concentrating their experts to focus on assaulting Sunset Peak, where the main hall is located. As long as they can capture or kill the sect's key leaders, the remaining branch halls will naturally collapse without resistance. So what should we do now? Should we go to Sunset Peak? Li Feiyu asked anxiously. Han Li remained silent. After a long pause, he suddenly turned to Li Feiyu and said in a low voice, "You still haven't told me. How did the negotiation convoy get completely wiped out when there were so many experts among them? Logically speaking, the Wild Wolf gang shouldn't have had such strength." Upon hearing this, the muscles on Li Feiyu's face twitched. He unconsciously stuck out his tongue and licked his dry, cracked lips, forcing a bitter smile as he said, "They used a large number of repeating crossbows, enhanced military repeating crossbows at that." Military repeating crossbows? That's right. At that time, it had only been 2 days since we left the mountain. We were walking across a stretch of grassland, still within our own territory, so everyone was quite relaxed. Suddenly, countless members of the Wild Wolf gang emerged from underground all around us. Each of them carried a strong crossbow, and then a storm of arrows rained down on us. The density of the bolts was so great that all disciples with even slightly weaker skills died on the spot under the barrage. Only a few who were extremely skilled or lucky managed to narrowly escape, but even they were all injured and their martial strength was greatly weakened. I was one of the lucky ones. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it back. As Li Feiyu spoke, lingering fear appeared in his eyes. A trace of dread surfaced involuntarily, clearly showing how deeply that volley of crossbow bolts had shaken him. After the arrows were spent, the opponent's experts moved in, and then we were drawn into a bitter fight. The remaining survivors, in order to increase our chances of survival, simply split up and broke through on our own. It was also my luck that I wasn't considered a high-priority target in their eyes, so there were fewer pursuers, and those chasing me weren't particularly strong. I actually managed to fight my way out. But when I made my way back, I discovered that all the stronghold along the route that should have been manned by our people had been taken over at some point, replaced by Wild Wolf gang members lying in wait for any stragglers like us. After falling for their traps once or twice, I no longer dared to seek help. Wanting to know what happened to the others, I later resolved myself and ambushed a blue-robed enforcer of the Wild Wolf gang. From him, I learned that Sect Master Wu and several elders had all been killed in battle after being surrounded by numerous experts. Only a few people like me, who were not heavily targeted but still fairly strong, managed to escape. After learning this news, I didn't dare delay even for a moment and rushed back into the mountains. Along the way, I unexpectedly met 2 other honorary elders who had also escaped, so the 3 of us fled together for a day and a night before finally returning to the mountain. Upon returning here, those 2 honorary elders went to Sunset Peak to inform Sect Master Wang that the negotiation team had been wiped out. I, on the other hand, made up an excuse of treating my injuries and secretly came to see you first to discuss countermeasures. You must understand, Sect Master Wu and so many others died in the ambush. Yet only people like us, whose status is neither high nor low, managed to come back alive. To avoid responsibility, who knows whether those above will vent all their anger on us and make us scapegoats. Now it's even worse. Before I could even explain this to you, the Wild Wolf gang has already attacked. Tell me, what should we do now? After speaking all this in one breath, Li Feiyu's expression turned somewhat helpless again. Han Li listened and frowned, tilting his head in thought. At that moment, the sounds of shouting and killing on the mountain grew even more intense. occasionally accompanied by the shrill screams of the dying, chilling to the bone. Do you still have subordinates on the mountain? Han Li asked in a very low voice. Yes, I still have over 20 men stationed in a few houses near Elder Li's residence. I originally planned to bring them out after the negotiations were over to handle some affairs. Very well. We'll first head to Elder Li's residence, gather with the others, and then meet up with Ms. Zhang, Xiuer, and Elder Li. As for what comes next, we'll decide after we clarify the situation. Han Li said calmly, his tone composed and rational. All right, I'll follow your lead. Things are so chaotic outside right now. I'm really worried about Xiuer, Li Feiyu said nervously. Han Li glanced at Li Feiyu, honestly unable to understand what the man was thinking. On one hand, he was intensely anxious and deeply concerned about Zhang Xiuer. On the other, knowing full well that his own lifespan was limited, he still insisted on marrying her, clearly intending to leave her a widow. What a contradictory fellow. Han Li silently gave his friend an unflattering assessment. Han Li lightly leapt down from the rooftop, with Li Feiyu following right behind. I'm going to pack a few things. We'll set off immediately after that. Fine, but hurry up. I'm really worried about Xiuer's safety. Hearing this, Han Li could only remain speechless. The constant affectionate way the other kept calling her Xiuer was almost nauseatingly sweet, making Han Li feel both disdain and a hint of envy. Han Li stopped paying attention to Li Feiyu, who had suddenly turned into a love-struck fool, and returned to the room to quickly pack a few essential items. All set, Li Feiyu urged impatiently the moment he saw Han Li come out. Han Li gave him a cold look and said nothing, then walked to a smaller room. Standing outside the tightly shut door, he said coldly, Qu Hun, come out. We'll need you tonight. Before his voice even faded, with a loud bang, the wooden door exploded as if it were made of paper. Amid flying splinters, a massive figure slowly stepped out. Li Feiyu stared blankly, looking at the towering man before him, whose aura was almost demonic and whose face was hidden under a hood. He froze in place. The giant silently moved behind Han Li. Let's go, Han Li said with a faint smile. This time, it was his turn to urge the stunned Li Feiyu. All right. Li Feiyu finally snapped back to his senses. He looked at Han Li with a strange expression, then at the giant, and silently led the way out of the valley. Han Li watched Li Feiyu's back and smiled slightly before quickly catching up. The giant Qu Hun followed closely behind, never more than a step away. Han Li was quite satisfied with Li Feiyu's tact. It was precisely because they both respected each other's privacy that their friendship had become so strong. They moved quickly and soon reached the valley entrance. Just as Li Feiyu was about to step into the forest, Han Li suddenly reached out with his right hand and grabbed his shoulder, stopping him. What is it? Li Feiyu asked in confusion, a hint of impatience in his voice. He was already anxious beyond measure. Someone's coming. More than one, Han Li said calmly. Li Feiyu was slightly startled and immediately focused to listen carefully, but after a long while, he heard nothing. He looked at Han Li in confusion, but the latter remained calm and offered no explanation. You, Li Feiyu began to speak, but Han Li suddenly raised a finger to his lips, signaling silence. Li Feiyu frowned. Though unwilling, he still subconsciously obeyed and said nothing further. This time, it didn't take long before Li Feiyu's expression also grew serious. He turned in shock toward Han Li, because he finally heard many footsteps echoing from outside the valley. Law enforcement, son. There's a giant bell and a small path by the edge of this forest. This must be Divine Hand Valley that the vice commander mentioned. A rough voice came from the other side of the woods. According to the map in this bell, it's indeed here. Remember this. The commander has given a death order. We are only to capture the divine physician in the valley alive. No one is to harm him, or you will be punished according to gang rules. Understood. Another voice, sharp and crow-like, issued the command. Yes, yes. A series of responses followed. Judging by their voices, there were at least a dozen of them, each with strong inner breath, clearly skilled fighters. Besides a blue-robed enforcer, the rest are elite members of the Wild Wolf gang. The blue-robed enforcer is equivalent to our sect's protector, while the elite members are on the same level as inner hall disciples. Li Feiyu lowered his voice and leaned close to Han Li, explaining softly. Li Feiyu knew that his friend had never cared about the situation of their sect's enemies, so he did not bother to ask why he had been able to hear footsteps so early. Instead, he directly explained the identity of the enemy, hoping the other party would understand the situation and not let down his guard. Upon hearing this, Han Li immediately understood Li Feiyu's intention. He chuckled lightly without saying anything, but his expression suggested he did not really care. This made Li Feiyu somewhat anxious. With my current strength, I can still handle that blue-robed enforcer alone. But if we add the others, I'm definitely not their match. I know you're full of clever tricks. Just tell me your plan quickly. Otherwise, it'll be too late. Li Feiyu spoke quickly and softly, his tone extremely urgent. Because those people had already entered the small grove and were walking toward where Han Li and the others were standing. Why don't we hide for now and avoid the enemy's sharp edge? Li Feiyu suggested a seemingly reasonable idea, but unfortunately Han Li had no intention of adopting it. Qu Hun, apart from capturing the man in blue alive, kill everyone else in the forest. Han Li suddenly turned his head and gave a cold order to the giant man. What? Li Feiyu was stunned upon hearing this. Before he could react, the giant man behind Han Li had already turned into a violent gale, rushing into the forest. Immediately, screams and cries of alarm erupted from the pitch-black woods. People from the Wild Wolf gang were being slaughtered. Who is it? Not good. Someone is ambushing us. What kind of monster is this? Run. The cries of alarm and screams quickly rose in the forest, then gradually diminished, and before long, everything fell completely silent again. Li Feiyu stared at the forest in a daze, his face full of disbelief. The giant man walked out steadily from the woods, carrying an unconscious blue-robed man in one hand as easily as if he were holding a chick. His body was stained with blood. The speckled blood on his green robe looked like brilliant, blooming peach blossoms. Li Feiyu drew a sharp breath. The giant man walked up to them and threw the blue-robed man onto the ground. A strong smell of blood immediately hit Li Feiyu's face, causing his expression to change drastically as he instinctively took a half-step back into a defensive stance. The giant man ignored Li Feiyu's small reaction. He stepped back and once again stood behind Han Li, silent and motionless, as if he had never left. Only then did Li Feiyu let out a long breath and relax his posture. He looked at the blue-robed man on the ground, then at Han Li, who remained calm and composed, and suddenly laughed. So that's why you're so calm. You actually had such a powerful expert hiding beside you. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You had me worried for nothing. Li Feiyu spoke lightly on the surface, but inwardly he was speculating about the relationship between Han Li and the green-clothed giant man. Han Li saw through his thoughts, but had no intention of explaining. With a faint, half-smiling expression, he said slowly, "This blue-robed enforcer should know quite a lot. Which of us should interrogate him? I think you, Hall Master Li, are more skilled at this than I am. The capable should work more, so I'll leave it to you." Seeing that Han Li had changed the subject and showed no intention of introducing the giant man, Li Feiyu felt somewhat unwilling. However, he was also very interested in interrogation. Hearing this, he simply went along with it and agreed. Li Feiyu lifted the unconscious blue-robed man and flashed into the forest to begin his interrogation. Han Li, meanwhile, sat down leisurely on the grass. Not long after, Li Feiyu walked out of the forest alone, his face gloomy. "Why so fast? Did you get any useful information?" Han Li did not stand up. Instead, he raised an eyebrow and asked directly, "A coward who fears death. I barely had to do anything before he spilled everything." Li Feiyu said gloomily, "There are two pieces of news, one good, one bad. Which do you want first? Let's hear the good news first. It'll be more pleasant that way." Han Li seemed indifferent. "The good news is that your guess about the Wild Wolf Gang's plan was correct. They really are only containing the other peaks without attacking them directly, and have concentrated all their main forces at the base of Sunset Peak, launching full-force assaults. I heard they've already broken through several defensive checkpoints. Li Feiyu spoke calmly, seemingly unconcerned about the sect situation. If even the good news is like this, then the bad news must be even worse, Han Li muttered to himself, touching his nose. Your crow's mouth is right as always. The bad news is that the attackers this time aren't just the Wild Wolf Gang. Several other smaller factions, such as the Iron Spear Society and the Broken Water Sect, have also joined in. It seems our sect is truly facing a major disaster this time. Han Li was stunned after hearing this. It seemed this news had also been beyond his expectations. Forget how many attackers there are. The priority is to rendezvous with your little sweetheart and your subordinates. The outside is in chaos right now. Leave quickly. Han Li quickly made his judgment after only a brief moment of surprise. Li Feiyu nodded in agreement without hesitation. This suggestion was exactly what he wanted. What about that guy? How did you deal with him? Han Li suddenly asked. Silenced him. Did you expect me to bring him along? Li Feiyu replied indifferently. Han Li smiled faintly upon hearing this. With one hand pressing against the ground, he rose lightly from the grassy field. Let's go. Try to avoid the enemies as much as possible. If we really can't avoid them, then kill everyone who discovers us. Show no mercy. Otherwise, their numbers will only keep growing. Han Li spoke lightly, but the meaning behind his words was filled with killing intent and a strong scent of blood. Several miles away from Divine Hand Valley, in Elder Li's courtyard, there was now a dense crowd packed tightly together. Among them were men and women, old and young alike. They clearly did not know any martial arts, but they were all whispering among themselves, each wearing an anxious expression. Around the courtyard, over 20 young men dressed in black and armed with blades and swords were on guard, making them stand out sharply compared to the unarmed people inside. Inside the residence's main hall, two people were arguing. I disagree with sending people outside. Our defenses are already weak. Sending more people out will only make us more vulnerable. No, absolutely not. A pot-bellied middle-aged man said, spitting as he spoke, shaking his head vigorously in firm opposition. But we don't know what is happening outside. If we don't send someone to investigate, we'll be completely in the dark. That would put us at a huge disadvantage. The one arguing with him was none other than Elder Li's disciple, Marong. Disadvantage or not, what happens outside has nothing to do with me. The safety here is what matters most. Do you dare defy orders? The fat man blinked his small eyes a few times, suddenly pulling out a golden waist token from his chest and waving it in front of Marong, his face full of arrogance. Marong looked at the fat man, then at the token, and sighed before cupping his hands in respect. I would not dare. I will strictly follow the order. This token was the personal authority token of Sect Master Wang. Whoever held it could temporarily command all disciples below the elder rank. The fat man was Sect Master Wang's personal confidant, reportedly even a close relative. Any messages or orders from Sect Master Wang were delivered through him. Not long ago, this man had been urgently granted this token by Sect Master Wang to come here and invite Elder Li up the mountain for discussion. But after delivering the message, he felt it was too exhausting to return immediately from Sunset Peak. So relying on his favored status, he insisted on staying at the Li residence to rest before going back. Left with no choice, Elder Li agreed. He himself did not dare delay, and together with Zhang, Xiuer, and several other disciples, he hurried towards Sunset Peak. Soon after, a major upheaval occurred on the mountain. The fat man, cowardly by nature, naturally became even less willing to return alone. The people in the courtyard were the families of members of the Seven Mysteries Sect stationed nearby. Most of them knew no martial arts, so when chaos broke out, they panicked and did not know what to do. Fortunately, Marong had a strong sense of judgment. He quickly requested the more than 20 subordinates left behind by Li Feiyu to help, gathering these people together to prevent them from running around in the night and encountering danger. Because this place was relatively remote, built in a mountain hollow, Although alarm bells and cries of killing could be heard, the people here had no idea what was actually happening outside. After finishing all this, Ma Rong intended to send people out to gather intelligence. However, the completely unskilled fat man appeared again at this moment. Not only did he stop any reconnaissance attempts, but relying on the authority token, he also seized Ma Rong's command over the Outer Blade Hall disciples, insisting on staying put and doing nothing as if covering his ears to steal a bell. Ma Rong deeply understood the importance of intelligence. He argued several times, but each time was suppressed by the extremely cowardly fat man using Sect Master Wang's token. Even Ma Rong's personal attempts to investigate were forbidden, as the fat man clearly regarded him as nothing more than a tool for his own protection. Thus, Ma Rong paced anxiously in the main hall like an ant on a hot pan, completely helpless against the ignorant fat man. He knew that disobeying orders in the Seven Mysteries Sect was a serious crime. Light punishment meant losing martial arts and being expelled from the sect, while severe punishment meant death under blade execution. Although he knew that something earth-shattering was happening outside, and the sect might be facing a life-or-death crisis, he was still unable to act. At the very moment Ma Rong was itching to strike down the so-called superior before him, Han Li and Li Feiyu were completely unaware of everything happening here and were still rushing toward this place at full speed. Along the way, whenever they encountered traces of enemies, they avoided them if possible, dodged when they could, and tried their best to conceal their movements. It was only when they were a little over 1 li away from Elder Li's residence that they ran straight into a group of green-clad men head-on, leaving them no longer able to hide, and finally engaging in their first direct confrontation with the enemy. Now, more than a dozen green-clad men armed with steel sabers were surrounding them from all directions, trapping them in the middle. From their walking stances, most of those with a single white stripe embroidered on their sleeves were the weakest in martial skill. The 2 men with 2 white stripes were significantly stronger, but the strongest of all was the scar-faced man with 3 white stripes, who was clearly the leader of this group. The scar-faced leader was also carefully examining the few people trapped by his subordinates, feeling somewhat puzzled. This was not surprising. Among the group, Li Feiyu now had disheveled hair and was filthy and ragged, looking like a cook from the mountains. Han Li had dull eyes and dark skin, resembling an ordinary peasant with no martial skills. The only one who could exert any pressure was Qu Hun, who was tall, wore a bamboo hat, and was covered in blood. These 3 mismatched figures standing together left even this experienced leader somewhat confused. He signaled his subordinates to stay alert, then shouted toward the opposite side. "No matter who you are, the Seven Mysteries Sect is already finished. Surrender now, and you may be spared." Han Li gave a faint smile and turned to Li Feiyu, saying, "Who will make the move? You or Qu Hun?" Upon hearing this, Li Feiyu's eyes flashed with a fierce light as he said sharply, "Judging from their attire, these people should be low-level disciples of the Broken Water Sect. I've been chased by the Wild Wolf Gang for so long. Let me vent my anger on them first. Their weapons also happen to be useful to me." As soon as he finished speaking, he shot forward like a rainbow streak, instantly arriving in front of the nearest green-clad man. That man was greatly shocked and was just about to swing his steel saber when he suddenly felt his hand lighten. The blade was already in his opponent's grasp. He hurriedly retreated in panic, but it was already too late. A flash of white light passed before his eyes, and he was cleanly severed at the neck. Li Feiyu's sequence of movements was clean and decisive, as fast as lightning. Before the others from the Broken Water Sect could even react, he had already seized a blade and killed a man. The remaining men immediately changed color. In particular, the scar-faced leader, whose martial skill far surpassed the others, felt the deepest chill in his heart. He clearly understood that they had encountered a terrifying expert, far beyond what they could contend with. Without hesitation, he ordered, "All retreat. Run if you can. Send the signal immediately and call for reinforcements." His words jolted the others. With a sudden burst, the previously encircling formation collapsed as they scattered in all directions, fleeing in every direction. Some even reached into their robes while running, apparently trying to retrieve signal flares. One green-clad man with 2 white stripes ran the fastest, leaping several times to cover several Zhang. Feeling secretly delighted, believing he had a chance to escape, he suddenly felt a chill at the back of his neck. A half-inch sword tip pierced out from his throat and then vanished without a trace. Horror surged through him. He tried to scream, but his entire body felt as if it had been drained of strength, turning limp and powerless. He could only watch as his body slowly collapsed backward onto the ground, completely unable to move. Only then did he realize he had been killed with a single sword strike through the throat from behind. The green-clad man was extremely unwilling. He had clearly run so far. How'd he died so quickly? With great effort, he turned his head aside and finally saw his last scene before death. A black shadow flickering in and out of view behind another fleeing green-clad man. With a light, drifting sword strike, the shadow trembled slightly and vanished again. It then reappeared behind yet another disciple, another flash of white light passing by. At that moment, the body of the previous man who had been pierced through the throat had only just fallen to the ground like his own, blood gushing from his neck. After seeing this, the green-clad man finally died with a faint smile because he knew he would not be alone. Very soon, many others would come down to accompany him. That ghost-like black shadow would spare none of them.